CNN's Anna Corin is following the latest from Hong Kong. Anna, it looks like there are more people out with you now than there were last hour. What's happening?
Yeah, Christy, we've moved into a different location and there is a bit of a standoff going on here between police and protesters. There have been thousands of protesters throughout the course of the day taking on the police, protesting against this very controversial national security legislation that Beijing has announced it is going to push through the Hong Kong legislature. This is unprecedented. They're basically going above local authorities and saying that this law, which would ban sedition, secession and subversion, as well as treason, international interference, that will come into play here in Hong Kong. Now, a little bit earlier, the protest anthem was played, people cheered. There's been multiple rounds of tear gas that have been fired throughout the day. The signs have gone up in the last few minutes, but we're yet to see the police fire that tear gas. But we've also witnessed dozens of arrests. And according to the police, they've arrested over 40 people. It gives you a sense, Christy and Victor, that authorities are not really showing much restraint. The protesters turn out, the sign goes up, tear gas is fired. Obviously last year we saw violent protests that paralysed Hong Kong. They started off in June, and the only reason they settled down was because of the outbreak of the coronavirus. This is the first real protest for 2020, and the concern obviously of Beijing is that Hong Kong will once again be embroiled by these protests. So by enforcing this national security law, something that authorities tried to do back in 2003, but there was such a public backlash they didn't go through with it. They're hoping by enforcing this law that will stamp out these protests, because public demonstrations where you are voicing your opposition to the government, opposition to the Communist Party, opposition to Xi Jinping, that will be a criminal offence. As to the details, what it's going to look like, we don't know. We understand that China will be allowed to have branches of the police or military here in Hong Kong. So perhaps once that law is enforced, which we're expecting to happen this week at the National People's Congress in Beijing, that perhaps we'll then see Chinese forces on the streets of Hong Kong. This is something we just don't know. But speaking to the pro-democracy lawmakers, the activists, they say that Hong Kong as we know it is now dead. It is one country, one system. Victor and Christian.